All right, all right, all right. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. First, before we get started, I'd like to give a disclaimer. This video is for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her own homework and research into the matter being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. Any event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource is not responsible for any misuse of this information. These are simply my opinions on the topic being discussed. Everyone is responsible for their own affairs. With that being said, all rights are reserved. Now, let's get started. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. Thank you for joining me. I wanted to discuss the topic of this video, that TDA accounts were real, but who's blocking access, plus Q&A. Depending on how many people we get in the chat, I am on a limited time span, so we'll see how things go. I have some notes with me here. Terry McLaughlin in the chat says, I'm okay. I just see that. Greetings to you, Terry. Welcome. Thank you for joining. So I don't know how long, I'll be. I have a lot of information. I wanted to go over some things, and just to let you know, that particular gatekeeper that I mentioned in some of my previous videos, I found out she did a video where she had took some remarks at me and some other content creators who study or go over this type of information. We're not all the same. We don't all think alike. We have different information. Some of these people I met, some I haven't met personally. She goes on to accuse, and I'll probably say that for a whole separate video. I have to do a screen capture because I've taken a lot of notes. I've been following her for a while, even when this gatekeeper, when she first came out. Her name is not even worth mentioning, but I just wanted to let you guys know I'm credible, and I'll go over the field that I work in. I've said to you guys in the past, I don't hide who I am.
5 all units, radio check.
As you guys can obviously see, I'm at the plantation now. Be back. All right. All right. Thank you guys for being patient. As I said, no pun intended, but I've gone over, I'm not hiding who I am. My channel's got part of my real name. But like I said, to reiterate, I have to save a whole separate video, but the TDA accounts are real. And I just wanted to go over some things that I've mentioned previously in the past. There's a reason sometimes I go over this information again, is to show that it was legitimate. There is truth, was truth to these payments and why reversals were happening. Hopefully, if I have enough time, I can kind of clarify or provide some insight. When these payments were going through PayPal, this was a couple years ago. This is back in 2017. After you verified the FRB process, which was working at the time, there was a guy that works in the information technology field, and he stated that these type of exchanges could not be going through by coincidence, that PayPal actually had this system set up to accept the Federal Reserve Bank. There were some people who did videos that took screen captures before this was shut down, where the Federal Reserve is trying to do damage control. They're obviously, they're lying. They're not telling the people the truth because they never really intended for the general public to know about this information. From what I understand, just to clarify, when I first discovered this, I stumbled across this a couple years ago, just doing research online. All right, let me get to the chat. I see a couple people. Kingdom Kicks, welcome, Kingdom Kicks. They're stating that R34 code right before who was blocking this stuff says very good question. And Terry McLaughlin says I proved it. Thank you, Terry. If you could if you don't mind elaborating on the information, how you proved it, if you don't mind going into the details, that is greatly appreciated. And I just wanted to confirm, this is not just myself. As you guys can see, because the chat replay, I'll leave it up when you guys watch the video. You're welcome to share it so you guys can see the evidence. This is not just myself. You're seeing a real person. This gatekeeper, they're always hiding behind this account, their account, their channel. They're never showing an actual face. They're never mentioning who they are. And the name I'll just refer to them as, I won't even say them by their channel name, but Venus Trinity or Trinity Venus, which I gave a breakdown on that later. I'll go over that maybe a different time because they're not even worth mentioning, but just to let you guys know, I'm showing my real face. And I have credibility. I've never sold packages before. This person is trying to say, trying to lump me in a category to say with these other people. I've never taken donations on this channel. The only thing I've admitted is my channel was monetized, just like she admitted her channel was monetized. And I don't even have a GoFundMe account. I looked at her channel, and I'm gonna do a screen capture video. At least I plan to. I saw her GoFundMe has over $2,000 raised. And she's complaining about people who charge people information and this type of information. Now, that's why I give a disclaimer. I don't promote anybody in particular. I have mentioned people or sources that I studied and done research under. But however, at the same time, I don't necessarily go tell people you gotta go study under this person or give this person money. I myself don't have a problem with donations or people who, because I feel like time equals money. That's just me personally. But as far as this channel, Dorsey's Resource, you guys know, you can see so far, I don't have a Patreon account set up. I don't have a GoFundMe. This gatekeeper, she's got a GoFundMe account, and she's got over $2,000 on there raised, and she's trying to call me lump me in with these other people, trying to call me a con artist. And if anybody calls you or says they're a sovereign citizen, be careful. That's an agent, because there's no such term classification as sovereign citizen. That's an umbrella term that was used to discredit people that study this type of redemption information, because they don't want people looking into this type of information. They want to keep people brainwashed and programmed in the regular public side of the system. Just keep that in mind. They want to keep people brainwashed. So they'll throw terms. It's like a derogatory term. It's an umbrella term that's used to discredit people. But I'm here to say, from my evidence, my research, I studied in this movement, and that's all it was a movement. I don't belong to any organizations. That's a fact. Only thing I'm part of is a couple different Facebook groups, but that's a whole nother discussion. And so far, I'm not part of any organizations that are 501c3. I'm not part of any secret societies. Just to let you guys know, I'm a loner. But I'm gonna go over that information when I do the video, and I roast this gatekeeper, and I tear him apart, and I'm gonna show you guys how to identify these gatekeepers and agents. And even if I can't confirm that this particular individual is a government agent, some people can also be agents of disinformation. They can be agents of confusion, of hate, disruption. And there's a reason why I called her a racist, and I say that, and I'll stand by that. When this individual tried to say they have Native American in them, they always, try to use that line. But she's hiding behind a fake account. She's not even showing her face or a real name. So, you're disproven. You're not even showing credibility. So when you want to bang with the beast, you want to have a debate with somebody that is showing their actual face, I challenge you to show your real face. And this goes for any gatekeeper. I've even said this to trolls. She's trolling people too. So that doesn't show credibility. At least in my book, I was taught growing up, if you have something that's legitimate, even for law enforcement, when people file police reports, they need to see, they ask you over and over. The reason they ask you sometimes the same question, they're trying to watch your body language and attain credibility. And I'm just saying, this gatekeeper that was attacking me, that's accusing me of this stuff, they're not showing their actual face. Like I said, I'm not going to waste my time on that, but I'm going to prove to you guys the TDA is real. I've already done it in previous video screen captures, but I'm going over. You also have something else called the IRS master file. Some people call it the individual master file. Duranjo says, shout out. Okay, let me see a couple people in the chat. A couple more people says, shout out from the White House, Texas. Okay, Duran Jackson, big shout out to you. Appreciate you. I'm not sure which White House Texas are you talking about? If you can clarify, are you meaning is that a part of Texas that you consider the White House is the governor's house, or you've been to the White House, or you're an activist from Texas? I'm not really clarifying, but appreciate you joining. Blanco Lugardo says hi, guys. Greetings to you as well. Forgive me if I mispronounced your name. Blanca Lugardo, thank you for joining. So I just wanted to acknowledge those in the chat to get back on track. The IRS master file is a printout that the IRS has. It's like a secret file it has on citizens, people. I discovered this some years ago from studying in the movement. We actually had, when we had classes set up, this was like unofficial, unconventional education. We had different people that would come from different walks of life, different skill sets, that worked in corporate America, that had legitimate jobs, but they also may have had a former military background. We've had herbalists that were part of our group, etc. When I studied many years ago, one individual, he was like over the IRS, the tax classes, and he showed there was a way to decode your printout. For example, you guys might be wondering, if you've never heard, what is the IRS individual master file? You also have a secret business file, I heard, and it's something they created where when they tap into our social security numbers behind the scenes, they show us listed as corporations, as companies in places like Guam, Puerto Rico, or the Virgin Islands, that you have a corporation or you're a drug runner or something. They actually have, but it's decoded, and you have to have it decrypted, because the corporations, for example, I know this might sound esoteric, this might go above some people's heads, but to clarify, these the social security number is a form of a QSIP. And I recommend do your research behind QSIP numbers, a Committee on Uniform Securities Identification Procedures, or identifying the principal. SSN numbers are assigned to some of these bonds. The number on the back of the SSN card is attached to other bonds as well. Like when we do stuff in the public, like when you take out a loan, it's your signature that's creating the credit for the public. What it is, a lot of these corporations are fraudulent, and they're actually stealing our credit. The way that this is set up is people oftentimes haven't done their research, but they also have done something else to block access to this. I probably can go into that later. It's the way I articulate it for you guys to understand. But banks and institutions, corporations are allowed to tap into our exemption as intermediaries. By the way, they are authorized to use our auto tris. Auto tris that deals with your exemption account, because in accounting you have like, for example, you have accounts payable, accounts receivable, you have your assets and liabilities. It's about balancing the books at the end of the day. The IRS is actually supposed to act as the accounting firm for the United States government, for citizens to balance the books. It's the purpose, the reason why people file taxes and different corporations, but people are actually corporations, just different types of corporate entities. And in the court term, legal term, it's called the in lingus within the judicial system. In the sovereign movement, you guys may have heard of straw man, where some people have been to court before and judges have told them. Sometimes I've heard stories I've read where judges have tried to help people. They said, are you referring to the decedent, or the also known as the estate? And the person didn't understand because they only had a little bit of information. So as you see, some people don't try to tie up the courts on purpose. It's just they have a lack of information. But you do have other groups of people out there that are not as well informed. You do have agents, and those are like, I'll just kind of let you guys read between the lines. But don't take my word for what I say. This is why I give a disclaimer. It's up to everyone to do their own investigation, their own research and assessment. But I'm providing my experience because I actually studied in this movement. And how many people do you know that work in private security? I had to go through a background check of a form of law enforcement, a lower level of law enforcement, that is willing to share this type of information. This shows credibility. I did a video in the past dealing with credibility as well, and going into why the reasons why some people got these return codes, R34, that's NSF, not sufficient funds or limited participation. That's the return code when people received reversals for the so-called secret account. But back to PayPal. PayPal was actually set up at one time where it actually linked with the Federal Reserve Bank. But when this went very viral and public, once again, to reiterate, because this gatekeeper, they came in, and because a lot of times these gatekeepers are haters too. They don't want to see you win, so be careful what information you share with people sometimes until you make your assessment. That's why I don't share certain types of information. But I noticed when they came out, even if, when something is legit, they have such an evil spirit, they try to destroy it, or they're mad that it's working for people, and they feel like that it's interfering with what they're doing within the public sector. But there's a difference between the private sector and the public sector. But however, the private sector does things to fund the public sector, because the way corporations are created behind the scenes, how the corporations were formed in the public, they had to have someone or individuals from the private come in and create these entities, or start off or create an infrastructure in place. You have to have, without structure, you don't have stability. So it had to have a source of origin, somewhere where things derive from. When this individual tried to say that common law doesn't exist anymore, that is not true. Yeah, most of the courts are statutory. However, there is a case law that points back to when the court systems in this country were changed. And I remember this offhand. I studied this from reading the documents years ago. I did a lot of reading. Yes, I did do my research. I'm very well studied in the information, contrary to what this gatekeeper is telling you about this person, Roger Elvick. And I can touch on that individual later for the research they did. But the Erie Railroad versus Tompkins case of 1938 is what changed many of the court systems in this country from common law to statutory courts. Now, some judges that are trained in this type of information, or certain lawyers that are trained in equity would know what I'm talking about when I'm going to throw a few terms like color of law. If you heard the term de facto, I'm going to say that again, color of law. Look up the Erie Railroad versus Tompkins case, and you may have to read several websites, but that's what changed, and it still does exist to this day, but it's in a hidden form, and I'll just kind of leave it at that right there, because this particular gatekeeper, they did some videos not too long ago where they're trying to discredit common law, saying it doesn't exist anymore. No, that's not totally accurate. That's not true. Even though the majority of the courts in this country operate under statutory, and it's different venues, different jurisdictions, like the difference between federal versus the lower courts, the lower district levels in your local municipalities. And then you have the county, like, that represents a separate body as well. Just like some cities, you have the county police versus the city police. There's differences. See, people got to do their research, and just stop assuming and listening to some of these gatekeepers, because these gatekeepers want to push a certain narrative. They're no different than fake news. This particular gatekeeper that came at me, that I'm going to come back at and show credibility, like trying to be like Snoops.com in a way. Terry McLaughlin says, GMI, go to that site and get yourself registered, then search SS number / QSIP, etc. It'll show you what's all in your name and number. Yes, thank you for confirming, Terry. I appreciate that confirmation, because this is going to play back in the chat when people allow, when this video uploads. You'll be able to see the chat section, so you can see that there's other people live that I can't control who comes in here who are confirming what I'm saying. But is this other gatekeeper, does she have people confirming? I have sources, I have documents, I can prove that this is real. I attended a private event some years ago. Okay, I have someone else in the chat that says, Blanco says, let me refresh the screen. Hey, Dorsey, you should open a Patreon and charge for the info. Currency 365 is the one that says you should do it for you. Can you get out of a third ship? But please don't talk about the aliens. LMAO. Yeah, that's funny. And that's one thing I don't get into, the super esoteric stuff. Now, I've showed books in the past, because that's a good comment, and I recommend, I appreciate Currency 365, by the way. Thank you for the comment, Blanco. But I want to say, kind of like towards the end, when you mentioned this particular gatekeeper oftentimes accuses people that study or share this type of information as being conspiracy theorists. He's like trying to lump us all in one category. And I want to say, I'm not a sovereign citizen. If anybody tells you that they are, or anybody that accuses you, they're agents. There's no such. The State Department in Washington, D.C. only classifies like 4 or 5 official types of citizenship, from what I understand. U.S. citizen, national, resident alien, non-resident alien, maybe one or two more. I could be off, but I was shown that by a private source some years ago to actually confirm with me. But that's an umbrella term, of course, I went over earlier. That's derogatory, that's made up, because they want to steer people away from looking into this type of information. But one thing I'm not, there is truth to when I've shown books. When I did go over like the book review on the Illuminati and I showed different books, I'm showing things, material you can research. You don't have to necessarily purchase those books. You can go online on YouTube, Amazon has books, eBay, Yahoo, Google. Just search those books and read information about them. They will provide credible information. That's not fake. It's not conspiracy. Everything isn't conspiracy, because what it is, that gatekeeper, she wants to keep people brainwashed and programmed. You know, I'm not telling people what to do. At the end of the day, you guys have all the power. I'm just a messenger, just sharing the information. I'm a researcher. That's what I do, is I do research. And I'm just sharing the information back to you all freely to let you guys know it's still out there. And I would document it, because there's something deeper going on with some of these gatekeepers too, that I'm not saying I don't have any evidence that she is for sure. But like I said, people can also be agents of disinformation. You know, she can be trying to push a particular agenda as well while she's also doing this, which I feel she has an ulterior motive, of course, no doubt. But this is leading to something bigger that deals with the censorship. Like you guys may have heard about recently, Minister Farrakhan getting banned from Facebook, and it was mentioned previously how Alex Jones was banned. That's a coincidence that these gatekeepers are attacking certain people that they don't want you to have an open mind or to research many different types of information, because if you research different types of information, which shows versatility, it will give people another perspective, and sometimes it'll show people in ways that they may not have saw before, a different outlook, how they may have been tricked or being misled. So she's actually, in my opinion, is a disinfo agent that's trying to misinform you, and she's trying to control the narrative. She's also very narcissistic, and if she was a dictator, she would be no different than Kim Jong-un. She would be authoritarian. If you know about Kim Jong-un or what the Chinese were doing years ago back in the 90s, when their citizens were practicing Falun Gong, that's like a form of Qigong, similar to Tai Chi and other spiritual practices, they were disappearing them. And there was videos on YouTube dealing with the execution vans. But since you guys know who YouTube is owned by, Google, and their parent company Alphabet, and Tim Cook has a big factory, Apple's over there, and the other CEO, Eric Schmidt, has big business with China. They don't want you to know this stuff because they're in bed with each other. So that's why some of these gatekeepers, they don't want you to know who they are. And I don't find it a coincidence. This particular gatekeeper, she doesn't show who her real name is, just goes by a screen capture name. Trinity or Trinity Venus. I won't say by the real name, but I'm going to say that for a separate video. I've got a lot of notes. And, you know, from what I mentioned already, just to reiterate, you guys see, I don't have a GoFundMe account. You know, this gatekeeper trying to lump me in the category with these other people. I'm a roaster too. You know, that's coming. You know, just lying. You know, that's just deceitful to show you how wicked some of these people are. You know, but let me get back on track. Dealing with these TDAs, I knew a guy that he knows a broker that knows how to look up the QSIP number. I won't go into that. That information I keep, you know, really private, confidential. There is a cost that comes with that. I haven't been able to do that yet because I myself don't really have the funds. But these are some of the sources that I have to show you guys there's legitimacy. Nobody else was really out there talking about this type of information, maybe other than Eon and a few others. There's not a lot. I also knew a person of the legal profession who was successfully discharging payments from a closed account. He was a paralegal. This is no BS. I had a talk with him, and I can tell he knew he had a legal background, because at the time, this was some years back, he gave me some consultation dealing with the situation I was going through at my job for something I dealt with. And I could tell, because I've studied a little bit of the law myself, even though by no means I'm not a member of the Bar Association, but I can tell that he was legit. You know, I did my research. He checked out, basically. So I'm just going over this list to show, to prove, to validate these TDA so-called private accounts. Some people call them secret accounts. It was real. And you might be wondering who's blocking access. In my opinion, of course, the Federal Reserve. They're doing damage control as well. So let me get to my other point. Yeah, I told this story a while ago in a previous video, but I also know a guy in the state of Michigan who had his personal check stolen. He tried to pay with legitimate funds from his personal checking account. There was a third-party firm that worked on behalf of the IRS, and they only had a P.O. box number, but he was able to figure out, he had to do some research to find out where their physical location was within the state. And he went up there in person, found where they were at, and he shared this with me privately. I'm not saying his name to protect his identity, who he is. This is a true story. And told me they zeroed out his account right on the spot after he threatened he was going to take them to court and sue them. Now, mighty funny, there could not be no secret account. Where did they get the funds from, to zero out? Because they were still showing in the system that he was owing with interest or whatever. So they even steal money from people sometimes when people try to pay legitimately. This was a third-party firm. They have debt collectors or third-party firms that work on behalf in cahoots with the IRS. Just to let you guys know, there's a whole separate video I can do on how the IRS has been used to also target people too, and that is supposed to be illegal for political purposes and in violation of the UN. You have Bill of Human Rights, you have the Geneva Conventions and treaties that are set up. These are serious human rights violations too. And what they've done in other instances, you have the Privacy Act of 1974, which they're not supposed to go into people's records, and a certain individual, I would say from the previous administration, ordered individuals to look up people's personal private records. And you can file a lawsuit. They know that most people don't have the money to afford a lawyer or legal consultation to do these things. That's why they were doing it, to get away with it. So I'm proving to you. And a friend of mine brought up, why doesn't this gatekeeper touch on the general public system of our government here in the U.S.? Why, for example, like banks like Wells Fargo was caught using people's social security numbers, opening accounts. Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian had a data breach. Big corporations, Target, Best Buy, Facebook, Cambridge Analytica. Remember that? Why doesn't she attack these people? Because these people are bigger than so-called sovereign citizens. To show you that this person has an ulterior motive agenda when she doesn't go after big government or corporations that cause more harm and damage than so-called sovereign citizens. Or whatever, the few out there, people that are con artists. I'm just saying, if you look into this gatekeeper, her argument that she tries to make. So I'm deconstructing, how many people are doing this to show you how brilliant I am. I'm not trying to brag, but I'm just saying, you guys, use your third eye, think. Say, MB Gang TV says, greetings, Dorsey. Thank you for joining. Truth Seeker says, greetings and glad you are still pushing the envelope. And getting information to the people. Okay, thank you very much. Ali Hassan, old dinar is accept to government. I'm not sure what you said. If you could specify that a lot clearer. That last comment there, Ali Hassan, old dinar is unless your meaning is acceptable. Those who are involved in that exchange. This video is not really in relation to that, but I think I get what you're saying. But to further clarify, given some of the reasons, once again with PayPal, the Federal Reserve, there's people that have evidence. I have a video from a guy, his channel was shut down, Ronald Rennerford. I have video evidence where he successfully linked his PayPal account up with his Federal Reserve so-called secret account or TDA account before they shut it down. I hear allegedly that the FBI put pressure on PayPal, and the pressure came from the Federal Reserve at the top. And also, it was stated to me, you also have the Secret Service. There's a division that investigates financial crimes and currency as well. And because maybe it went too public and they didn't want the general public or people in general to find out, that's why they're doing damage control. So when they're releasing statements and this gatekeeper is reading articles and trying to say, trying to imply that the FRB institution doesn't know what to do, and she's acting like she's defending them. which is really suspect because when she first came out, she posed as though she was going to help people get to the bottom of this. But the whole thing, changed to something completely entirely different. So I'm just giving you guys a hint. Some of you all may know who I'm talking about, by the way, but I'm going to continue further. I saw a judge who mentioned in a documentary, corporations live forever until it's dissolved legally. I think the documentary might have been called Justice and Beyond. This means after you die, they're still trading your legal fiction. I hear. And that was at 22 minutes and 55 seconds in. I'm not sure if that documentary, if it was called Justice and Beyond, but this statement meant that this means after you die, they're still trading your legal fiction. Because I hear, they created also a death certificate too. Many people talk about the birth certificate, and a lot of these things are being held at the county. Like after a loved one is deceased, you have to go to these same similar entities to get access, by the way, or at the state level. There is a connection. So to continue on further, just going through, I went over intermediaries, our banking institutions and corporations. They are allowed behind the scenes to tap into your accounts. They're authorized to use the auto tris. However, when we used it for the so-called secret accounts, you may be wondering who's blocking access, but according to the law, that there's a particular law where the Federal Reserve Board of Governors states that all payments are supposed to be final and irreversible. And then you do have the statutes at large that where HJR 192 is codified at a statute. Was it 1212-144? I can't remember offhand, but there's a particular statute that does reference to Public Law 73-10, which is HJR. There's an actual statutes at large that's codified in as well. And the statutes at large are very powerful. Now, I did give a disclaimer. This is not legal advice. I encourage everyone to make their own assessment, to look up the information. But I'm showing you, I'm going through this list so you guys can connect the pieces, connect the dots together to show validity behind these TDA accounts were real, in my opinion. But who's blocking access? Obviously, the Federal Reserve, based off the information I mentioned already. I think I had some more action-packed information for you guys. I might jump ahead. I don't really think I have time to go into some of the stuff I went into before already about a guy who looked his deceased brother's BC back some years ago through Treasury Direct, or it may have been Fidelity. GMEI Utility was also mentioned by someone previously in the chat just now, so I don't need to touch on that again. You guys can watch the video, go back to that. There's only certain classes that teach this type of information that's closely related to redemption. There's a college course called Business and the Law, or Business and Law. A lot of people that go in the legal profession or accounting may have to be required to take this course. For some other people, it might be an elective. When you have an elective in college, that means that class is optional. But if let's say if you're a law major in the legal profession, or you're an accountant or a finance major, it may be required for you to take Business and the Law. And a friend of mine's wife that had an accounting book, this gets into this information. It talked about marketable and non-marketable securities. By the way, there's some information I don't know everything about. Let me see. Somebody has in the chat. Terry McLaughlin says, yeah, I don't want to say the name. Yep, you got it confirmed. She's definitely a damn gatekeeping POS. Yeah, you absolutely right. Yep, to confirm. Appreciate that, Terry. So I don't have to say it. You guys can see. True Seeker says, telecheck. Okay, you just reminded me, True Seeker. Thank you. That's what I was going to go over before the kind of condensed information. Telecheck, it says, who used to verify accounts in my name that the banks denied existing. Telecheck not only verified these supposedly non-existent accounts, it said they were authorized for funds transfer. Yes. Thank you, True Seeker. I can confirm what you're saying. Thank you very much. So this shows more confirmation, more evidence that, you guys can see this is not just myself. I can't control who pops up in the chat or who decides to put a comment in the chat section. These are people, you know, some of you I've never met in person before. I just know of your screen name through this channel, but you're confirming the same information a couple years ago that Mike O'Brien, we went over on the conference calls. Big shout out to him. Triple Moore, Extra Light, Harvey Dent, and all the people who contributed. Willow Green, big shout out to her. Everybody, a lot of people contributed to this type of information with different angles to show validity. And I can confirm that's what I was going to go over. Telecheck did the same thing for me as well. This is where I was going to go over. They told me, I still have my notes in my book right here. They said paper checks are allowed. They told me the FRB of Atlanta, even though my routing number was through Chicago, based on my current Social Security card, it allowed for electronic payments, but they said you had to call to get it to be allowed. But when they started blocking everything, they stopped allowing you to reach a live person, and they started having an automated machine. And then I confirmed the other number that was used, the Treasury Direct, the 0517 number. She mentioned that the lady from Telecheck, this was the representative. I would have tried to record it too, by the way, guys, but I did take notes to let you guys know that that account could do electronic payments, but the FRB account, you could do paper deposits, because I heard of people doing paper deposits at their banks that were going through. But when all of this came out, or I guess got too public, they shut it down. Like now with certain merchants, and thanks to this gatekeeper, because she admitted she was calling different agencies or whatever to try to have this shut down. That's what prevented and stopped some of these payments from going through. Now when you try to use some of these same routing numbers, they don't even go through anymore. Let me go back. So we have some more messages. Edward Freeman Jr. says, I have letters from Telecheck telling me that I can use that account. Virgo Triad is a POS. Okay. True Seeker says, haha, same Edward. And initially Chase Bank said they would authorize the payment had I had any proof in writing. Once I had that, they moved to the goalpost needing to log electronically, which is a red herring. Okay, yeah. There was like more information they wanted you to go through for verification. That's where the elites, I was explaining when I was invited to the private Discord conference calls, where they keep this information very secretive, selective who they shared, like the playbook. If you familiar with sports, how the coach of a team has a particular playbook or the schematic that he shares specifically with the teammates to run the plays and stuff. That's what the ruling class elite have when it comes to this high level information. And I also have experience where I attended this event years ago. So you guys have my word, you know, what I'm going over is credible. And I thank you guys for joining the chat and this discussion to confirm what I'm saying is valid. I appreciate it, definitely. So let me see if there any other information that I was going to go over before I shut things down, because there's just so much, you know. I just want to verify, in my opinion, that these accounts were real, and the question was who's blocking access, you know. And this was also Q&A too. I forgot to mention if you guys had any questions, but we have some advanced people in here that are familiar, that are up to speed or like at the same level I'm at. You know, I'm still learning certain things myself, but I'm going over what I've actually experienced. I do have sources out there to confirm this type of information that I'm going over. So I think that was the wrap right there. True Seeker, thank you for reminding me about Telecheck. Says Edward Freeman Jr. says, and my brother, let me pull that back up. Says, and my brother paid an account out with the routing numbers with American Honda Finance, and 2 weeks later the title came in $6,500. Okay, yeah. I think what I think they did overall, when this just went too public, they just shut everything down, and they didn't care who it affected. Blanco says, great info. Thank you for being honest with us. Wow, awesome. Appreciate it. Appreciate the confirmation. Blanco, I appreciate you guys. So with that being said, it's been a minute. I just wanted to come back and let you guys kind of know what's going on. I'm still here, still doing the research on behalf to present the information I've come across. I have not, for that particular event I attended some years ago, there's like a second wave, but I just decided not to come back. So far, I haven't signed any current non-disclosure agreements recently, just to let you guys know. Now, I was part of some other program that I won't say the name, what it was, or what it's involved with. I said I will be willing to sign an NDA with that. But as far as the PTK Colombo thing, I plan on not really coming back because, and I probably could go over reasons later. Hopefully they will make things right, as they said that they would still look out for us. You know, I don't know if that's, you know, contingent upon an NDA, but we should have received something financially, which would have been a very good incentive for people to keep their mouths shut. But we see that these globalists, these ruling class, and their wickedness are just so evil with the way this banking system is. Watch the movie Money Masters and Monopoly Man. Don't take my word for it. Also, changes on the horizon. You can watch all of them for free on YouTube. I've gone over those documentaries so many times, but they will confirm my frustration. But I don't want to let that, you know, take away from my energy, but it would be a blessing to see something come through. Then you would have people would maybe have more of an incentive to keep their mouths shut if they received, you know, instead of going through all the hell they had to go through. True Seeker says, I don't think many have access currently, but we are still researching as we know it's real. Just remember, money is about control, nothing more. They don't want us truly to be sovereign. Yes, then I'll say this to add, I tell a friend of mine this, that money can be the root of all evil. But remember, the ruling class, they're using it for control purposes. They're using it for wicked purposes. They're not using, remember, money is a tool. It's a bartering, a means of exchange. Like, say if I wanted to trade somebody this pen and this whiteout for this phone that I have, or I want to barter with them. It's a means of exchange. We have to remember these Federal Reserve notes are also copywritten, where it says Federal Reserve notes. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. Legally, this is a Federal Reserve note. They're telling you, you know, but this could be monopoly money. It's our faith to put credit in this instrument, but they're using it the way they have a monopoly over the corporations and the payment processors. That's what makes it evil. But it's the lust of it, and how they're using it for negative purposes. But it's a tool, a means to barter, exchange. So I would just to clarify, money itself is not evil. It's just a means of exchange, but it's the people who control it, the puppeteers that have it copywritten in these different laws and stuff. You know, just to clarify. It says, yeah, I'm not saying inherently trading things is bad, but usury and compound interest are. Yes, I'm in agreements, definitely, absolutely, yes. Definitely, no doubt. So, with that being said, I want to thank you guys for joining me at Dorsey's Resource. In case you're new to this channel, you can follow me at Dorsey's Resource. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter at Dorsey's Resource. Of course, I'm on YouTube. I'm also on Instagram. That's like another side of me. I don't really have a lot of photos on there. Stuff I've done in my personal life. I uploaded some old photos. If you want to follow me on there, that's cool. You can follow me at Dorsey's Resource _2019. Dorsey's _ Resource 2019 at Instagram. I'm also on minds.com at Dorsey's Resource, and gap.ai. I'm on there as well as backup, you know, in case things, you know, go down because of all this censorship that's going on. Blanco says, good night, guys. Thank you for joining, everyone. Until next time, don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe. You can hit the notification bell at the bottom. YouTube will let you know in the upper right hand corner whenever I put out new content, new information. You will be notified. Until next time, everyone, thank you for joining me. I'm your host, John Dorsey.